You know, when we talk about a country's food security, we usually get a single big picture number, the national average. But what if that average is basically a mask, hiding a much more complicated and sometimes tragic story of inequality? Well, today we're going to see how advanced mapping is peeling back that very mask in Indonesia to show us the true face of hunger, one district at a time. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll get on the same page about what food security actually means. Then we'll take a look at the standard official map for Indonesia. After that, we're going to put on our detective hats, because we're going to follow the 4 key clues researchers use to uncover a hidden story. That'll lead us to these fascinating pockets of hope and struggle, and we'll wrap it all up by talking about why this new map is such a potential game changer.
Right, so before we can even get to the maps, we've got to be crystal clear on what we're talking about. See, food security isn't just about having food on your plate. It's a huge deal. In fact, it's the UN's #1 sustainable development goal, zero hunger. And to even begin to tackle a goal that massive, you need a really precise definition.
And it all really boils down to 3 key pillars. First, there's availability. It's the simple question, is there physically enough food in an area? From farms, from storage, from imports. Then there's access. So the food is there, but can a family actually get it? Can they afford it? Can they reach it? And finally, you have utilization. This one's a little different. It's about whether your body can even use the nutrients from the food you eat. And that depends on stuff like having clean water, good sanitation, and basic healthcare.
So, with that framework in our heads, let's zoom in on our case study, Indonesia. And what a case study it is. We're talking about a massive archipelago, more than 17,000 islands. Just imagine trying to get a clear, consistent picture of food security across a place that complex. It's a huge geographical challenge. So this is the standard map that officials have been using, the Food Security and Vulnerability Atlas. And at a glance, you can see a pattern, right? The western part of the country, especially the island of Java, it's all darker, which means it's more food secure. The east looks a lot lighter, so it's more vulnerable. But this is a real bird's eye view. And this, right here, is the million-dollar question. Does a map like this really tell the whole story? I mean, what is that national average actually hiding? Could there be these deep, dangerous inequalities, with pockets of extreme hunger living right next door to areas with plenty? Well, that's exactly what researchers set out to discover. To find out, they knew they needed a better toolkit, so they approached the whole thing like a detective investigation. Instead of just relying on one piece of evidence, they decided they would combine 4 different clues to get a much clearer picture of what was really happening on the ground. And here are their 4 clues. They started with the official map, the FSVA, but then they added calorie intake. Are people actually hitting that 2,100 calorie a day target? They also looked at the food variety score, which is just what it sounds like. How many different types of food does a household eat? And finally, the dietary diversity score, which checks how many food groups are on the menu. Looking at all 4 together, that gives you a way more solid answer. But how in the world do you map relationships across thousands of separate islands? This is where they got really clever. They used a technique called Thesan polygons. The easiest way to think about it is like this. For every single district, the computer draws a bubble around it that connects it to its closest neighbors, even if there's water in between. And just like that, they could analyze the entire country like it was one single connected space. Pretty cool, huh? And this was their statistical magnifying glass. It's a tool called LISA. Now, instead of just showing you one district's data in isolation, LISA is all about finding patterns. It hunts for significant clusters, the hotspots, where well-fed regions are surrounded by other well-fed regions, and the cold spots, where food insecure districts are all clustered together. It's designed to find the truly meaningful patterns in all the noise. So, with these brand new tools in their hands, the researchers were finally ready to draw a new map, one that promised to reveal the real, and as it turns out, far more dramatic story of food security in Indonesia. So, the big moment. After they combined all 4 of those different measures and ran them through that statistical magnifying glass, what did the final picture actually look like? This. Just look at that. This image shows the core finding in such a powerful way. The analysis revealed this incredibly stark, just undeniable divide. All those red areas, mostly in the west, are high clusters. So those are regions of high food security surrounded by more high-security neighbors. And the blue areas, which totally dominate the east, are low clusters, deep pockets of food insecurity surrounded by more of the same. The national average wasn't just hiding a few details. It was hiding a nation basically split in 2. So what's driving this huge divide?
Well, the research points to some pretty clear factors from history and geography. The West, and especially the main island of Java, has all these advantages: fertile soil, way more investment in roads and ports, diverse markets, and just generally higher wealth. But the East, in contrast, is dealing with a totally different reality: geographical isolation, tough terrain, a serious lack of infrastructure, and a weaker economy. It's basically a perfect storm for food insecurity.
But the story gets even more interesting, more nuanced. Because within that great big divide, the analysis also found the exceptions, the outliers. These are the pockets that totally defy the regional trend. And for people trying to make a difference, these might just be the most important parts of the whole map.
Yeah, take a closer look at the map. Forget the big red and blue blobs for a second and look for the smaller patches of orange and light blue. Those orange spots are what they call high-low outliers. You can think of them as little islands of food security floating in a sea of vulnerability. And the light blue spots, they're the exact opposite: low-high outliers, which are pockets of struggle surprisingly close to areas of prosperity.
So what exactly are these outliers telling us? Well, those orange high-low areas often turn out to be urban centers like Merauke City and Papua. They have better markets, better roads, better infrastructure than all the rural areas around them. These places could be incredible hubs for spreading positive change outwards. And the light blue, low-high spots, they point to very specific problems, maybe a logistical bottleneck or a local economic issue that's cutting them off from their successful neighbors. They signal a problem that needs a really targeted solution.
And this brings us to the final and honestly the most critical question of all. Why does any of this analysis matter? I mean, it's a cool map, but so what? It matters because it completely transforms our understanding of the problem. It allows us to move from these broad, clumsy strokes to precision policymaking.
Because now, for the first time, policymakers can identify the most persistent, most urgent hotspots of hunger. Look at these districts like West, Southeast Maluku, the Aru Islands, and Panai. These places showed up in the low blue cluster on every single one of the 4 food security measures. There's no ambiguity here. These are, without a doubt, the highest priority areas for any kind of help or intervention. And ultimately, what this map screams is that a one-size-fits-all policy is just destined to fail. It won't work. Different regions need different solutions. An island district like West Southeast Maluku needs help with sea-based logistics. A landlocked mountain district like Panai needs roads. This kind of mapping finally allows policy to be tailored to the actual problems people are facing on the ground. See, this isn't just a story about food in Indonesia. It's a much bigger story about the power of data to reveal these hidden truths that were right in front of us all along. And it leaves us with this one last, really crucial question to think about. Now that we can map inequality with this kind of stunning precision, can we finally find the will to design for equality?